You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2-hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 150 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for one of the most successful Canadian bands of the 90s. I'm talking about the platinum-selling and 3-time Juno-nominated band, the Watchmen. He's also spent the last 2 decades as a successful real estate agent. So welcome to the podcast, Sammy Kohn. Sammy, how are you? And is it true that you have a mild obsession with band t-shirts?
First off, thank you, Joel, for the lovely introduction. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I guess I do. With regards to band t-shirts, for as long as I can remember, I've been buying them, collecting them, and wearing them. And now in my 50s, I haven't lost any sort of interest as far as procurement is concerned. Yeah, I have a thing about band t-shirts. I've got band t-shirts in my drawers that I've had for north of 25 years that I don't wear. I just look at them and I admire them. Um, I'm pretty nerdy in regards to seeing people. I'll give you, an example of the lengths of my nerdism. I saw somebody a few weeks ago wearing at a Starbucks a Devo t-shirt. And I know that they had just played at History maybe a few weeks before. And I immediately have a kinship with somebody wearing a band shirt that I appreciate. I'll be jogging and I'll see somebody with a Slayer t-shirt. I'm like, Slayer! But this particular guy, he was sort of taken aback. I walked right up to him. So did you see the show yesterday, last week, whatever? He said he did. We talked about it. And so I like when people do that with me too. When I'm wearing a shirt, it's sort of like a bit of a brand. It's part of your identity. So yeah, I love buying them. My wife teases me because she one or two shows up every few weeks on our doorstep. But yeah, that is a secret little addiction for me.
When I go to the gym, I can see who the music fans are because just yesterday I saw someone with a System of a Down and Deftones shirt. So they just played the 2 big shows in Toronto at the new stadium. So I know that they road trip from Ottawa to Toronto for that. And then suddenly I'll see a Billy Talent shirt and I can see that the date was the show the night before here in Ottawa. So it's cool to be able to identify our fellow musicians through those shirts. Can you think of some of the first band t-shirts you bought? If we went in your closet or the drawers, there's all those t-shirts. Can you think of 1 or 2 that date way back?
I know exactly what it is. I mean, it was the Cramps. I was 13 or 14, and there was a record store downtown in Winnipeg where I grew up called Records on Wheels, and I think it might have been a head shop too. It was in a very grimy part of downtown, and I used to go down there with my friends. We'd take a bus down there and look at records. And if you sort of entered into the back area of Records on Wheels, they'd have shirts in plastic bags hanging all over the walls. And I saw this logo of this, what I assumed to be a band, and it said the Cramps, and their sort of classic sort of punk gothic logo, rockabilly logo, and I was just drawn to it in a very strange way. And I ended up buying one of their albums that day too. And in the back cover of the album's called Gravest Hits. I still have it in my record collection. And in the back of that album, there's a picture of the band in the middle of a theater show, and it's just a chaotic scene where you see sort of beyond backstage, you see people at the sides of the stage, you see the singer lying on the ground. It's a black and white photo. You see people in the seats. It's very sort of disruptive. It looks like it's almost like this riot is almost happening. It's a bona fide sort of punk rock show. And this image, if your listeners want to Google it, it's the back cover of Gravest Hits. It sounds kind of corny. It had this indelible impression on me. I still love playing theaters to this day. I don't know if it's because of that, but to answer your question simply and succinctly, it was the Cramps. That was the first shirt I bought, and I still have a bunch of shirts, Cramps shirts, and I wear them live. And it's my own little sort of memory of the beginnings of my obsession with music.
Do you feel like there's some karmic element to you having bought t-shirts for the last 30 plus years, and then you're in a band that's selling t-shirts, and maybe there's some karmic gods that because you purchase so much, you have fans that are purchasing yours as well. It's just like the great balance of the universe.
Could be, my friend. I really don't go down that road too much in my mind, but it's certainly something I don't take for granted. When I see people wearing Watchmen shirts, I'm always grateful. And um, yeah, it's certainly and it's a big part of admiring bands is merchandise and what that sort of represents for sure. I mean, I'm the kind of guy I hate to admit it. If I see somebody wearing a Misfits shirt or something and they're a teenager, I'll think they don't know any Misfits songs. They don't. And I'm it for some stupid reason it kind of bothers me. But I am a truly I'm a music obsessive in every sense of the word. Was when I was a teenager and I am now. So.
The last thing I'll say is you reminded me that a few months ago I was at Blues Fest and I was there to see another band, and someone walked by with the Watchmen t-shirt on, and I took a picture. I sent it to you. I sent it to Ken, and one of you guys said, "That's one of the new shirts. Like I haven't seen someone wear that yet." So it was kind of cool. Just random show in Ottawa, the Watchmen. There you go, walking right by me.
Nice. Maybe I made a couple of bucks.
That's awesome. So I like to start the interviews by sharing with our listeners how the guests and I know each other to show the importance of networking, of building community. In the music industry, it's important. Also, you in the real estate world, networking is everything as well. So in our case, we go back a few years. I did an interview with your bandmate, Ken Tizard, bass player for the Watchmen, about 2 years ago. This is on episode 106. And that got me into the Watchmen universe. And we messaged a little bit back then. And then in the last year or so, you provided some kind words for a guest of mine, Mitch Dorge, the drummer for the Crash Test Dummies. And we got him right in the feels that helped make the interview something special. So I want to say thank you for that. And that's how we ended up here today.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Look, I had no problem saying nice stuff about Mitch for sure. I just saw him recently, as a matter of fact. It was about a month ago. We were playing at the same festival out west, and he was playing on the Friday night with the Dummies, and we were playing on the Saturday. So we sort of crossed paths at a hotel that we are both staying at. And I saw him where I was half asleep, and it was this big buffet breakfast. And I'm walking back to my chair, and I see Mitch, and I'm like, Mitch, we gave each other a big hug, and he had this big plate of bacon, and I just teased him about eating just bacon. And but it was, yeah, it was really nice to see him. I don't see him often, but we're sort of kindred spirits as far as two bands that were successful in the '90s and put Winnipeg or added to Winnipeg being a very important city as far as Canadian rock is concerned. So it was very easy for me to say nice words about Mitch Dorge.
So we're going to do a full 2 hour deep dive interview. We're going to cover your life, your career, your discography. I want to get started all the way back at the beginning. Where does this love of music come from? Is there an earliest musical memory that stands out to you?
Probably just at home. Um, my parents were bought music, went and saw theater. Music was around the house. My mom was very natural in terms of the piano. So there was that. Probably just the records that were lying around. My sister and I would dig into my parents' record collection, and there was just some stuff in there that I would have normally not listened to if it weren't for my parents. My sister also would buy albums. Um, so yeah, it was, and this was in my old house, so I was, 8, 9 years old. But they had there was some Gordon Lightfoot albums. There was actually, what was interesting is they had the Hair soundtrack, the original Broadway Hair soundtrack, which was this. I mean, I don't know if you know the story of Hair, but it's about this group of very subversive um, draft dodgers. I mean, it's got a whole bunch of metaphors in there, but uh, it didn't. I didn't understand any of that when I was a kid. Not to mention the very, very clear messaging our sexuality, fluid sexuality. This is stuff I'm listening to in the
Hmm.
70s. I knew nothing about it. There's a song on that soundtrack called Sodomy. I don't know if you have to bleep that out. Didn't know what I was singing back then, but it meant something to me. I knew that it was not sort of mainstream instinctively, and I could really trace back that time. Listen to the Hair soundtrack. My sister loved it too. I still love it as being an early touchstone. And then there was events. There would be Hanukkah, and I'd get a Billy Joel album. And I remember one time my mother said to me, we were at a we were shopping and she said, you can pick one album out. Go pick out an album. I'm buying you an album. And I went and I thought I was being sneaky. I went and grabbed the White Album because we had the blue and the red albums, 63 to 65, 67 to 70, whatever there was, the Beatles' greatest hits. And I thought I'm going to get the White Album because it was a double album. I thought I'd maybe pull one over on my mom and she'll buy me a double album. So she bought me that. And that was kind of, I know this is cliche, but that was a bit of a life changer, just the deep tracks on the White Album, spinning Glass Onion backwards to hear the message. And it was obviously as diverse as it gets as far as the different styles, all the little sort of genres that they delved into. It's kind of a mind blower. So those are some of the earliest memories. And I'd also, a friend of mine reminded me of this recently. When I would have friends over to hang out, it would be we'd have a concert. We'd be like, okay, you're at my house. We're going to play these guitars on these tennis rackets. We're going to close this sort of gate, and we're going to lip sync to this Kiss album. And this is what we're going to do. That was my idea of fun. And I was 8 years old, 9 years old. So the roots are, like I said earlier, very deep as far as my fascination with music, performance. Um, and it really aligned with who I was even back then.
And how did you make the transition from music lover, just listening to those albums, to actually picking up some drumsticks and playing an instrument?
I always wanted to play drums. I really can't remember. I just think it was something very natural to me to be able to keep time. I know that my parents, uh, despite being very supportive, I think they had their misgivings about buying me a drum kit and they wanted me to learn guitar first. They said, I don't know if they thought drums weren't legitimate or I'm not sure, but I took guitar lessons for a few years and I was doing it sort of begrudgingly. And that's not the way one should learn an instrument. I know my daughter, I've encouraged her at times I bought her a nice guitar on her birthday to practice and learn. And I thought, I can't, you can't push somebody to do that. And that's the way it was with a guitar. But a friend of mine, I remember when I was a kid, had a drum kit and I'd love going over there and playing. And it was very easy for me to I picked up the sticks and I could keep time. By watching people, I don't know, I could play. So I don't know where the hell that came from, to tell you the truth.
And which drummers were your biggest influences when you were first learning to play drums? Should I assume Ringo because of the White Album or?
Yeah, Ringo was up there. I mean, quite honestly, I've never been sort of a chops drummer guy. I could, like Neil Peart, and I mean, there's no question there's talent there, but I'm more a music fan than a drum fan. When I was growing up as a teenager, there everybody sort of played an instrument, and everybody kind of had their favorites. But for me, there's a few names, some of the standard guys, but it wasn't like that for me. I wasn't trying to be like a flashy uh, drummer. And to this day, I'm very, very less is more. I'm more interested in playing a groove and having some repetition and creating. just something that people could maybe move to, dance to, snap their fingers to. It's really more song and music oriented than drums for me.
In which way do you think growing up in Winnipeg shaped you as a person and later on as a musician?
Well, Winnipeg, I never really looked at that closely as far as how it shaped me as a musician until I was in the band in the Watchmen, and we would um, we would perform locally, and it got to the point where we were sort of selling out locally. And I mean, backing up even earlier, like I said, about all my sort of contemporaries, everybody at a certain age in the late 80s, everybody played an instrument. And then suddenly I would kind of look around and I'm not exaggerating. Everybody I went to high school was did something musically. And I could think about all my whole circle. Everybody kind of dropped off slowly but surely. And I'm going to school, I'm going here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And there were sort of three people left standing, and it was Danny, Joey, and myself with our instruments. Um, and we first started playing together when we were probably 13 or 14 years old. Joey and I will often say, sorry, there's a bug in here. We kind of bought our instruments right around the same time, about a week apart, I think. And we were distracted in class together over the dream of performance and playing, and we would play at our high school together. And it gave us that sort of first buzz and that first taste of performance. But just to answer your question very quickly, I don't want to ramble. When Winnipeg be and the impact Winnipeg have had didn't quite occur to me until a few years into the band. We can maybe jump into that a little bit later on, but I think being from Winnipeg played an important part of our identity. It still does. We're sort of considered a Winnipeg-centric band, despite all of us living here in Ontario. So
So let's just dive right into the Watchmen. So you guys, the band was formed in 1988. You said you knew two of the other members since you were 13 years old.
younger. I mean, Danny and I are first cousins. Our moms are sisters. Singer. Joey and I, grade school, grade one, kindergarten. I mean, we have inside jokes that are a mile long, that we still laugh about here and there. But I've known those guys forever, and that's not lost in me how lucky we are. I mean, look, this band has come with many, many challenges, and every band has its wrinkles, which we can cover if you like. But you cannot buy that kind of history. I see from time to time, I'll get ads or postings, drummer wanted for this kind of band or whatever, or we're forming a band, we're in our mid 30s, we're mature musicians, we're doing this, we're doing that. We have this incredibly organic history together. Um, and that is, I think, the best bands, most of the most well-known and successful bands, a lot of them have that same type of history. And I can rattle off a bunch of them right now, but I don't need to. It's an incredible thing that we have that. It's kind of it's a strength, but it's also a weakness because we can make each other crazy, and we know how to get it under each other's our individual skin, so to speak. So, but it's a nice thing when things are going well for us, for sure.
And when the band was first forming, who would you say were the band's biggest musical influences? So maybe you had a few favorite bands, but then when there's other members, it's kind of takes from everybody to make a sound of a new band.
Yeah, we often went through a lot of the same uh, records and had the same taste. We would be often listen to certain bands in our van driving around. We spent hours and hours and more hours in this van traveling around the country. A few that come to mind. I mean, REM, I think, is probably at the top of that as far as their whole aesthetic. Four members. They had that sort of contemplative, introspective sound with lyrics that meant something. We came along at a time when there was a very crowded pool of Canadian bands in the 90s that I think a lot of them were trying to sort of sound like, I hate to say it, sort of grunge bands. And that was sort of rampant at the time. And we were in those waters. But underneath that, sort of rock sound. We had, like I said, quite an introspective, contemplative sound. Sort of there was a folk element to that as far as how we uh, like to write songs, and that was in a lot of what we listened to as well. But yeah, REM. God, we love the Jayhawks. I remember. I mean, so many. I can't even begin, Joel. We would often, something I will say that was interesting was when we were 18, 19 years old, before we had a record deal, um, we knew that the industry of music was in Toronto. And being a band from Winnipeg, we knew we had to be here a lot, and we would come here for months at a time and work. And we had an agent at the time, who's still our agent, who would book us to open up for anybody and everybody. And this was at a time when we were uh, only sort of getting started as a band, learning our craft, learning how to be in a band, learning how to travel together, learning about how we should be developing our own sound. But we were like very impressionable sponges at the time. So it's a remarkable catalog of every band. Tragically Hip, Pursuit of Happiness, 5440, Doug and the Slugs, Kim Mitchell, Barney Bentall, um, pardon me, Northern Pikes, Skydiggers. I mean, I can go on. Razorbacks, these 90s bands, we'd come here, and a lot of them had record deals in 1990, and we did not have a record deal yet. And it felt like a big deal that we were opening up for these bands that were putting a lot of people in these rooms. And I feel like at the time, it was natural for us to kind of take a little bit from all these bands. We would learn a lot. We would steal this. We would maybe, incorporate a little bit of that. And that was all sort of building as far as the Watchmen were concerned, just prior to McLaren Furnace Room coming out. And then at that point, we had a producer, which was very important to kind of align a lot of those influences. Because I think we were, prior to that album, we had good songs, but sound wise, I think we're a little bit, I hate to say it, a little lost. I listened to some of those demos, and they're not great stylistically. But yeah, it was a very, very exciting time. And we knew that it was something we wanted to do. And it was at that point, and I'll circle back to what you said earlier. It was at that point when we knew that the music of Canada was very Toronto centric. And that came with its disadvantages. And I'm happy to talk about that. But it was a bit of an uphill battle at that time, being from Winnipeg. But we physically made the trip into the city a lot. Played all over Queen Street. First time we played at Lee's Palace, we made $6. I remember that because I have a picture of three $2 bills, and it shows you how old I am. It's $2 bills, and beside the picture was a note from the doorman or something, or maybe the promoter saying it's $6. We had to pay the guy to take tickets at the door. Like it's so $50 from what we earned went to the guy at the door, and then we made $6 or something. So point being, we started at the in the mail room, so to speak, in Toronto, and then worked our way up from there.
So speaking of Toronto, you guys had a really important show in 1991 at the Horseshoe Tavern. This ties into you saying, a producer came in that really helped out with that first album. Do you want to share why that show was so important at the Horseshoe Tavern?
You said 99 or 89?
91. Was it
91.
1991? Apparently, this is where you guys connected with Chris Wardman, his girlfriend.
Yes,
Maybe
at
there's
that
fake
point.
news on the internet here. We'll
No,
find out.
I think the whole Chris Wardman thing has been overstated a little bit. We wrote in a bio, we used the word discovered by Chris Wardman. And certainly Chris had an important part in that first album, but that went on to, because I will say certain journalists can be very lazy, and our bio was regurgitated for years and years. And it's still, there's a lot of internet out there that says we were discovered by Chris Wardman. We were not discovered by Chris Wardman. He came to an early showcase of ours At that point, we had management. We had a sort of inclusive deal with our management. We went to all the labels to try to get the band signed, and it didn't happen. That's kind of a truncated version of what went down. Management that we had at the time financed our first album through a small imprint called Sumo. Sumo had distribution through MCA at the time that became Universal. And part of that 360 deal we had with management, record label, and publishing, the financing of our first record included Chris Wardman, who I think had a financial piece in things, but also produced that album. So that's in 91. I'm assuming you're referring to, I believe, and my memory could be wrong. We did a showcase for him. I think might have been at the Horseshoe. We were playing at the Horseshoe. And then maybe we came earlier and just played him our songs or something. I have a vague memory of that. And what I'm going to add here as well, just kind of going off script, so to speak, these are all my memories. I'm going to put a disclaimer here that this is not the opinions of my bandmates or the memories of my bandmates. So I'm going to just put that out there for the record.
So speaking about management, we have a fan question from Hillary Valancourt. Hillary's question is, how were you initially connected with Jake Gold?
Jake Gold was introduced to us by our booking agent at the time, a guy called Ralph James, who is still our booking agent. Ralph is
He's one of the giants in Canada, right?
He is a giant, I would say, not because of his ego. That's a joke. Ralph was the original bass player in a band called Harlequin that were extremely successful in Canada, and he went on to book bands. And speaking of starting in the mailroom, he kind of blood, sweat, and tears to get to the top of that food chain, and he's extremely successful. He continues to be loyal to us because we were very, very loyal to him early on and remain loyal as he made some different moves over the years to different agencies. He introduced us to Jake. And from what I learned after the fact, Jake was sort of passed originally and wasn't immediately excited. And then him and Alan and Greg at the time, who had the management trust, wanted to expand their roster a bit and were keeping tabs on what we were doing. And he came around and we were looking for management. And that really catapulted us to another level for sure, signing with management trust, Tragically Hip's management at the time.
Is it true that in the early years, you guys were playing like 100, 150 shows a year?
It was insanity. I mean, I was 19, 20 years old. We had nothing to promote. We had T-shirts in the back of our van. I will hand it to Joey and Danny and our original bass player at the time, Pete, a guy called Pete Lavin, lovely guy. I would sit in the back and listen to music, and those guys probably didn't trust me to take the wheel. But hundreds of thousands of miles, the dead of winter, hot summers, every frosh week in every major city in this country, we would be there. And this is all pre-record deal. This is all pre-McLaren. This is just sowing oats, so to speak, one fan at a time. That's a cliche. You go to a city, you play for 15 people, you come back, there's 30, blah, blah, blah. It really is the case for us. I think that hard work that we put in then, that's still paying dividends now, years and years later, because we always felt like we were doing it the right way. When we got to the point where there was radio promotion and videos and the ability to play on a national stage or get exposure on a national stage, other countries were involved. We had set so much up already. And it wasn't some big calculated move. We weren't that smart, but we had that. And we also would always remind ourselves that this is not, take this away from us. When you get to the point where you rely on the promotion of a record label and they dangle their money in front of you and they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a video and into this and to that, it's wonderful when it's there. It's great when you see some momentum building, but they could just as easily take that away. And we had that experience. But what we are now enjoying still 30 years down the road is doing it one fan at a time. And and I don't know if that's something that bands can do these days. That was a really important time for the band. I didn't know it at the time. It was grinding, it was hard, but we had little wins that kept us going along the way. So
You've mentioned to me that you've dealt with some stage fright or anxiety. Was that apparent all the way at the beginning, or did that build over time, maybe as the shows got bigger?
you know that yeah, that's an interesting topic. I mean, it's a whole big conversation. I struggle with anxiety generally. Most people do, and that gets sometimes exacerbated on stage. I still feel kind of sick the day of a show. I was talking with Danny, our singer, about I guess a couple months ago now. We were both waiting around at a show out west, and I said just to this we're waiting backstage on in 3 or 4 hours, and I said it's still to this day I feel like I have a low grade flu right now, just in anticipation of going on stage. But and it's no joke. When I was in my early 20s, I think what you're referring to is I had what I know now to be a panic attack on stage. It was in Guelph, and we were playing, I think it was at the time multiple sets. We were playing at a place called Brass Taps. It was with our original bass player, so it might have been in 91 or 92. I was 21, 22 years old. I was not introspective enough at the time to know what was going on. We were drinking a lot, hangovers, with that, kind of exacerbates. And I was making some mistakes on stage, and I started to sort of hyperventilate, and I needed to get through the set immediately. I kind of just barely got through the set, and I really didn't know what had happened. I thought it was okay. I made a mistake, and I started to critique and overthink, and then I kind of brushed it off. But I realized years later that was a panic attack on stage, and I spoke to a professional and learned some coping skills with managing the adrenaline that comes with jumping on stage. Um, and I still have those skills that I work on now. For about 10 years, I had a B written in Sharpie on my drum kit on my drum skin, my snare skin, that reminded me to breathe, because I'd be up there holding my breath. But now I'm a kind of a pro. I marvel at these moments where I'm just looking around. Yeah,
Somehow the arms and legs are still going.
they're still going, but I slow things down really, really slow. And I mean, this sounds a little flaky, but it's very easy to be very sort of out of body when you're performing. And now I have moments every night where I just take some deep breaths, and I look around and I take things in. But I have to remind myself of that all the time, because it's like I said, the adrenaline can be all consuming. But yeah, I struggled with it for a long time. Now I kind of know there's a bit of it there, and a lot of it is just sort of anticipatory nerves. But back then, I really struggled, and it became sort of a performance anxiety thing. Before I went on stage, I would anticipate that panicky feeling, and I had to deal with it on a professional level. So,
So let's dive into the band's discography. So in 1992, you guys released McLaren Furnace Room. We've been talking a little bit about it. There's three singles: Cracked, Run and Hide, and Must to Be Free. The album ends up going gold. What thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now when you think back to that album that kickstarted the adventure you've been on since then?
McLaren Furnace Room was a culmination of our first few years, as far as the best songs we had written up until then. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's kind of, I feel it's sort of Joey's album in a way, because those are all his songs um, that he wrote, and he was very prolific at the time. Um, from what I know now, he was writing from a very pure place, not influenced by record labels and record advances and singles. And it was just like, these are my songs. And he had a group of people in Pete, the original bass player, Danny, and myself, who supported that. Um, So yeah, and those are still some great songs. I mean, we've got a lot of songs that have not stood the test of time in our discography, and some that have, and we play 78% of those songs still, which to me that's all there is to say. They're very they're I'm not going to say simple. Um, they're just good songs, and that was also a time when Chris helped us consolidate the sound a little bit. He gave us a bit of a rough edge, which in hindsight was a really important and smart thing to do because that coincided with heavier guitars and more of a rock sound that was permeating through what was on the radio and such. So, yeah, it's a lot of great memories. I remember the first time seeing the physical CD and a cassette of McLaren, and it was very exciting for sure because we'd done so many demos up until then, tapes and what have you, and this was a CD, and it was mastered by a guy named Howie Weinberg. If your listeners want to Google him, he's kind of he is literally the master as far as mastering is concerned. He worked with a lot of great bands. And I remember learning from Wardman that Howie Weinberg's going to be producing it, or mastering it. So, yeah, very cool time for sure. It's a great, I've said this before, a great first album because we had there was some growth that was needed. There was some stuff that needed improving, but you don't want to come out of your gates sort of fully formed. And we were not fully formed as a band, but it really encapsulates what was happening at the time.
So you remember seeing the physical cassette for the first time. Do you remember hearing your music on radio for the first time?
You know, the guys, I've heard other members of the band talk in interviews how we were driving to Toronto and they heard Cracked on the radio. I don't remember that. I do not remember
Maybe
that,
you were
but
sleeping in the back.
I might have been sleeping. Yeah, I might have been sleeping. Might have had a hangover sleeping. But yeah, I rarely hear the band on the radio. I've heard it. They still play stereo on Q107 pretty regularly, and I people tell me they hear us on the radio, and I see the royalty checks. But I don't remember that specific instance, Joel.
The title of the album that refers to the band's rehearsal space. Is that correct?
Yes.
We have a question about that space. So this is from Andrew Lars. Andrew's question is, how do I get my hands on an MFR poster or a PDF so I can print my own?
Uh, we we have a bunch of those posters kicking around. The Jake Gold, as a matter of fact, he was getting rid of a warehouse, sorry, a storage spot that he had been renting for a number of years, and he called me and said, "You need to come down here to get all this Watchmen shit." And I came down, and I've got just hundreds of posters sitting in my basement, much to my wife's dismay. Um, I don't know. Get the guy to email me or something, and we'll figure it out. But because we have lots of posters, we sold some at a show recently, a couple years ago. I think if you buy a T-shirt, you get a poster or something. But yeah, no problem. We'll get them a McLaren Furnace Room poster.
The music videos for the first two singles got some play on Much Music. You mentioned you haven't heard the Watchmen music on radio that much. Did you ever catch the videos on Much Music?
Yeah, for sure. Later on, when we started to get into sort of the heavy rotation phase, I did see. Yeah, that was always super exciting, and you knew that you were on a national scale. So, uh, yeah, that was cool. We did a video for Cracked. We had somebody come down. I mean, videos I have kind of a love-hate relationship with videos because I and I've said this before, I feel it's sort of tainted me a little bit as far as some of the songs where we have videos because when I hear the song, I see the video, and video, make no mistake, it was a lever to pull when you wanted to get some national awareness, but it couldn't have been more um, uncreative, if that's a word, as far as um, a working band is concerned. I started to think about how Winnipeg, Canada felt very small around the time we were doing videos. I know Much Music. I will caveat with how important Much Music was, certainly to our career, but we would always have jokes about the videos. We would get treatments from these people, and we would pass on the treatments. Then we'd see, I Mother Earth with the
The
same
next band.
treatment
Yeah.
video. Yeah, next band, same director. We all had access to the same pool of directors. Joey could be one of the funniest people I know when he wants to be. And he once made a comment. We were getting styled, wardrobed for a video for a song called Zoom on Brand New Day. And we were putting these sort of cheap suits on to give us sort of a specific look. And he said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember. He said, I think I saw 5440 wearing these in their last video. And just thinking about that makes me laugh because he was right. I mean, it was just the same budget, same director. Um, but look, that's just me being a cynical asshole and joking around. Grateful that we had record labels giving us piles of money to make videos. But and I have certain interviewers, they ask me about these videos. I just don't really put too much stock in it. I'm grateful for them, like I said, but it's not nothing. There was no creativity involved.
Yeah, the music is what was most important, and then videos were just a marketing tool later on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, to think that we were around at a time when labels were spending 70, 80,000 dollars on a video, and that in Canada was a lot. International bands would spend millions on videos. And it was something that would get recouped and it made sense in the economy of the music industry back then. And it's all relative. But we benefited by videos for sure, because like you said, it was that the ability just to get your music out there for sure. It was important thing. Much music was amazing.
I remember hearing that Michael Jackson spent $3 million making the Scream music video, and you're like, man, the amount of money thrown around, even though he's a billion-dollar brand, so it makes sense.
It probably made sense at the time. It's like, look, if they spend 3 million, they'll get 50 million back. It's simple math. So, um, but it's rare that I watch a video now. Do they make videos still? I mean, I don't even know.
Yeah,
I mean,
straight to
maybe,
YouTube, but yeah.
yeah. So.
Times have changed. Later on, I'll definitely ask you about how the music industry has changed from when you started to today. I went back, I listened to the entire discography for the Watchmen, and man, this debut album, the drums sound awesome. Right off the bat, the very first song, Crack, the drums slap right out of the gate. There's kind of a live off the floor vibe to the album. I don't know if that's actually how it was recorded. Can you share some insights into how you achieved your signature drum sound and how maybe it's changed over the years? So I don't know if you had a specific drum kit or company you used back then and if that changed over the years.
For that record in particular, just to sort of stay focused on McLaren, I remember Chris had a specific idea about what he wanted as a producer, and that was helpful. The Watchmen need producers. We need an impartial opinion when we're trying to create. That's a different topic. But Chris, who we trusted, I'm trying to remember now. He had a buddy who had a great Yamaha kit. I think it might have been Joel Anderson, who was in the Skydiggers and then played with Art Bergman. I think it was his kit. He had me put these specific skins on, coated ambassadors, top and bottom. He was an expert drum tuner, I remember, Wardman. Really, really good drum tuner. And we did it, yeah, it was more or less live off the floor. I mean, I think I did my drums on that album in 2 or 3 days, one or two takes. It was my first exposure to a click track, and I was a little intimidated with that. It took me a while to get into that, but now I love playing to a click track just to really be rock solid. So that was a learning curve for me. I remember being uncomfortable with it at the start, but those songs are played to a click track. But I also remember arguing with him a little bit as well because he would suggest tunings that I wasn't happy with, that to me didn't sound very good. And the attack on the drum, I'm getting very technical here. The attack on the drum would be different because the skin on the shell would be so loose. I remember this very specifically. He'd be like, "Just trust me. You'll hear how it sounds. I know it doesn't feel the same." And he was very sarcastic, Chris. I would tune up the drum when he'd go to the control, and he says, That sounds like a hit single drum. You've changed the tuning. Do we like the hit single drum? We don't want to have, he wanted to be kind of alternative and subversive and whatever. But I'd be like, well, it's the way I like it sounding. And so there was some friction there, I remember. But so I have to be honest, there's some cringy moments on McLaren for me. I haven't listened to it in a lot of years, but I'm not thrilled with the drum sounds on that album. Not that it matters one bit, but it's a sound. It's cool. There's some cool stuff on there for sure. I know that Chris really liked a big sound, but it's a little wide open for me, if I'm being completely honest.
Is there a specific album where you feel like, man, we nailed the drum sound?
Silent Radar, 100%, because we're playing the kit that I still have. It's an AOD kit. AOD is a company, a Canadian company that at one point made some of the best drums I feel like in the world. They're no longer a company. I had a drum tech who helped me tune, a guy named Greg Keplinger. And Greg is kind of a legend in the industry of music. He makes drums. He makes a drum called the Keplinger drum, naturally. So yeah, it was very, and those were just kind of like very natural, organic sounding recordings on Silent Radar, and it was my kit. So the snare sound on stereo is the snare I use to this day, and it exemplified what I liked and what I felt the most comfortable with at the time. So yeah, that's probably the one.
Producer Chris Wardman, he's credited on the album for dragon noises. Can you explain what dragon noises are, or is this an inside joke?
A lot of producers, what they'll do is they'll want to put their own stamp on a recording. We had one guy who we did demos with who wanted to put lap steel on everything, and he's an incredible talent and an amazing lap steel player. But it was just all of a sudden we'd be just like, "What's that lap steel in there?" Is so Chris. I'm assuming he probably did some feedback or something, and it's on there. I don't remember what he did exactly. I remember he had a buddy, Sam, not Sam, Jason Snyderman, whose father owned Sam the Record Man, play Mellotron on Must to Be Free. And it's so low in the mix, I could barely hear it. I remember being very excited about, oh my God, there's going to be Mellotron on McLaren Furnace Room, and it's buried in the mix. But I don't know what the dragon noises are. I don't know.
I guess
Maybe
the dragon noises are just a part of the Watchmen lore, so that's why I ask
could
about
be.
these things.
That's a seriously in-depth question. I'm impressed that you've got that, Joel. So
That's why
might as
we
well
have 2 hours. We're allowed to go into the weeds a little bit before we come back on track.
go deep into the weeds.
So the next album, 1994, In the Trees. So there's 4 singles: Boneyard Tree, Wiser, All Uncovered, and Lusitana. Is that how you pronounce it?
Lusitana, yeah.
Lusitana. So the
Yeah.
album goes gold, the album goes platinum. This is considered the band's big breakthrough album in Canada. Do you remember receiving the news that the album had gone gold and then platinum?
Uh,
That's a big
I
deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, just to add some context, we had gone from a distribution deal with MCA to a sort of a full-blown record deal with it was still MCA at the time. So we had the support, the full support of a record label in advance of Trees, and there was a significant lift in terms of promotion. I remember there's billboards around Winnipeg with our face on the billboards, and just a massive blanket of press that was happening, expensive videos. So we were kind of in the machine pretty dramatically at that point, because we had the full support of a label.
Was it the momentum from McLaren that showed the label, okay, no, we need more than just to distribute their albums. We need to take them on legit
Yeah, I think
signings.
so. I mean, look, we toured McLaren extensively. We There was a lineup change within this time frame. Pete Lavin, who was our original bass player, is a terrific bass player. Very kind of meat and potatoes, groove oriented bass player. Very much stylistically similar to the way I played, for better or for worse. And then he moved on, wanted to spend more time with his family, wasn't really didn't have the same ambition that we did, and so there was a couple of years in there. I mean, he stuck around till we found somebody. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is when we hired and brought on Ken, we had some auditions. He was the guy. He added another element to what we were doing, and that was group songwriting. So that was a very, very significant change. We had in our back pocket a great composer in Joey, but we also had suddenly the option of writing collectively. And I think that was at the time largely influenced by some of the stuff that Ken was bringing in. So to answer your question simply, we had built relations with people at MCA at the time through our work promoting McLaren, and that allowed, assuming at the time, Jake to sort of speak to the label and say, "Look, we're shopping and looking, and would you like to?" They probably had some sort of first right of refusal or something at the time. So yeah, we were like an MCA signing at the time.
And I think I remember seeing a picture of you guys receiving your plaques. I don't know if that's for the platinum or the gold or
Oh yeah,
maybe a
you're asking.
different
Yeah, we
album.
got. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we were presented gold records with trees. Uh, and yeah, it was, I think they maybe they surprised us. Ralph James was there, Jake was there, it was in Winnipeg, I believe. I think we were playing with Junk House in Winnipeg at the time,
Nice.
if memory serves. And yeah, it was very, very cool. It felt legitimate. It's hanging on my wall back there, the gold record.
Is it true that after the success of In the Trees, then the McLaren album went gold? Is that the timeline?
Yes, exactly. Yep, it went gold. I don't know the dates, but uh, it, yeah, we got to gold status on McLaren. That one felt really good too because it was obviously the debut, and it was sort of moved from strength to strength, and certainly the promotion that was a part of the Trees cycle uh, catapulted McLaren as well. So yeah, very cool.
I was going to ask if the McLaren going gold, if that was extra special because you basically did that as an indie band with all your hard work before, and there was just a little gasoline added to it once you moved over to the major label.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what happened.
Listening to the albums, with that album, the song All Uncovered, your drums are super unique on that song. Do you remember coming up with that drum part, like as you guys are writing the song?
Yeah, I've told this story before, and it's worth repeating because it was very exciting, the all uncovered thing, because that sort of epitomized the group writing that we were doing at the time, because we needed material, and we would often spend time. We would lock ourselves in a room together and try to write. It's torture. And we just had a writing session a few weeks ago, and it's still torture. But more often than not, we come up with stuff. And that day, Ken, I believe it was him. He came in with a basic riff. I learned later, much later, that he'd been listening to the song "Secret Journey" by the Police. And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You took that from Secret Journey?" But that's a different story. Can I swear on this? Sorry,
Sure. Yeah.
um, but it morphed into a Watchmen song. So it was very organic. He started playing this riff. I think at the time we had agreed we might want to try to play or incorporate a 3/4 time signature into what we were doing. Ken played his thing. Joey added something. Danny started sort of improvising. And I do remember very distinctly with that song, we had gotten to about 2 minutes into the song where what we composed that afternoon is what the song is. And it broke down kind of naturally, but we looked at each other, and I remember laughing, thinking that's great. Danny sort of hit a high note, and it kind of hit a peak, and it was just it sounds corny. There was a bit of magic in the room. It's what songwriters strive for, and that's the really sort of the addictive thing that comes with creating. I'm sure we ended up recording it on a crude little dictaphone or something after, but we felt like we had something really good, and we're really proud of it. And that song, to this day, and this, like I said, I can't say this about all our songs, not even close. I still get chills playing it live. I still enjoy playing it live. It's a great arrangement. It's different, and fans, the energy we get from audiences when we play that is always exciting. But yeah, I was playing what's called blast sticks with that song. It's kind of a hybrid brush stick type of instrument, and it just gave the song a different quality. So that added to it as well, for sure. And that song, I think, single-handedly gave In the Trees a kind of a new lease on life after Boneyard Tree had run its course. We were kind of in the middle of an album cycle, not sure where to go next. I don't know whose idea was it to release All Uncovered as a single.
They deserve a raise.
Yeah, I don't know who thought of it. It wasn't me,
Hmm.
but it launched the record. It gave it a new life, and and we were like shifting units, as they say back then. It really helped things, and still a great song.
I have some kind words sent in from another iconic Canadian drummer. This is someone that has memories from that period of time you're talking about. This is from original Our Lady Peace drummer Jeremy Taggart. He says, our first big festival was with the Watchmen in 1994 at Sunfest in Gimli, Manitoba. I always thought that Sammy was a very solid drummer, and I knew I liked him when he confessed his love for Elvin Jones. So that's from
Mm,
Jeremy Taggart.
nice, nice, very nice. Yeah, I follow Jeremy on Instagram, and he's a real personality with some comedic chops. But he also, from time to time, he'll get on the drum kit and he'll just like start grooving away. I'm like, man, this guy, he's got some pocket. He's he's a great drummer. But yeah, that's cool. Very nice. Thanks, Jeremy.
You guys received your first Juno nomination during that period of time with that album for Group of the Year. That's one of the big nominations you can get. What did that first Juno nomination mean to you? That's your country acknowledging your music, your talent, your hard work.
I think it meant that my parents can get off my back about my career choice. I think that's what it meant, Joel.
A little validity.
Yeah, no, I mean it was yeah, it was exciting. It was I don't know if it really moved the needle as far as our own work ethic or our own uh, desire to continue to work and to write and that sort of thing. But it did, all jokes aside, it did kind of legitimize what we were doing a bit. Like I said, I feel like the band there was some struggle as far as getting on the national stage because of what I felt was a bit of a Toronto centric industry. Hope I didn't get any hate mail for that. But when we had those national accolades, it was something we really appreciated for sure. And then we would go to the Junos, and you kind of think, cross your fingers, maybe we'll win this. We never won a Juno, but yeah, thinking back now, it's unbelievable how much the industry's changed. I can't remember the last time I watched the Junos. Last time I did, I looked over at my wife Sarah and I said, I don't know any of these bands. I don't know. I'm sound like an old man. The industry's just changed so much. But it was an amazing time for Canadian bands in the 90s with just a really good group of just real bands who wrote songs, who toured, who a lot of them, the really good ones, had their own sort of identity. Some of them, a lot of them are still playing today. Um, and I still enjoy listening to a lot of them. I think Sloan are a bunch of geniuses, the way they market themselves with their artwork. and with, you kind of choose your favorite member of Sloan, and it was,
They switch their
uh,
instruments in between songs. Like the whole band
yeah,
just shifts one instrument. You're like, what?
yeah. I mean, look, that's not really, that's cool, but what I find more interesting is how, and I get their references. There's like sort of pastiche from 60s, 70s, I'm probably the same age as a lot of those guys, so I see kind of what they're doing here and there, and I really appreciate it. I wrote Chris Murphy. I'm gonna just drop a name here. Last year, a couple years ago, they put a record out, and I listened to it, and there was this piano song that Chris Murphy must have written because he sang it, and it was fantastic. And I wrote him a note, I don't know, maybe through Instagram or something. I said, to pull that kind of trick out of your ass, 30 years in, I was very, very impressed. That's really hard to do that on your 12th album, whatever it is. You just wrote a really, really great song, and he was grateful. And um, but yeah, so yeah, they're a great. Big Sugar, great band. Just fantastic guitars, and we all clamored to get on a bigger stage, metaphorically, and that's an American audience. And that was, I think, the biggest challenge that a lot of bands faced back then, was the thumbs up and the legitimacy of other countries appreciating what you're doing. And I look back with a lot of clarity now. I know how the industry works. I know that Much Music will play your band if you're assigned to a major label, and there's obligations and responsibilities with radio people who create playlists and such. So, and then CanCon, of course. There's a whole lot that goes into it. So it was really exciting for the Watchmen when we started to tour into some different markets as well, and see some traction happening in other countries, because we knew that we needed to do that to sort of keep going. And we weren't taking anything for granted. We loved the fact that we had a certain level of popularity in Canada, but we also knew instinctively that we needed to widen the scope of things as well.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1-hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. As you started to tour in other countries, you start to find success there as well. I remember seeing you guys chart in Australia. Did it mean something special to you to see other countries where you show up in the charts?
Yeah, exactly. It did. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at is, I know that by the time were touring Australia, EMI Canada had a relationship with EMI Australia, and they had some success with some other bands who are Canadian who went down there. It was a long trip, but we did it. I think we were there 3 times in total. We did some major touring and major promotions there, and yeah, it was. It just felt like it was very meaningful to be appreciated by a different country, where perhaps the country wasn't sort of obligated to play you, if that makes sense. That sounds a little bit cynical, and I don't mean that to come off that way. I just mean it just boosted our confidence. Let me put it that way, to see that there was other countries that where what we were doing was making sense. And we would do everything and anything. We didn't say no to anybody back then. We did all the shows, all the morning TV, BS, everything, all the radio stations. We went down to Australia once for close to 3 weeks and just did promotion. I had a set of bongos that I walked around with, and we didn't play any shows. We just promoted Silent Radar. So we wanted to make it happen for ourselves.
Yeah, for some reason, Australians just love Canadian bands. You mentioned EMI had other Canadian bands that had success in Australia. I think the Tea Party were EMI, and they had platinum success in Australia as well. I wonder what it is about Australians and Canadians when it comes to music.
Well, at the time, they if memory serves, they just liked good bands, good rock and roll bands. And
That's the
I
easiest
know.
explanation, right? Just there was good music from Canada.
Well, yeah, I remember in Germany they loved rock too. We played some big rock festivals there. They in some of those countries, rock is still a thing. Rock is not a thing anymore. If you look at the charts, Billboard now, there's no the Foo Fighters. Maybe I mean, are they still putting records out? I mean, it's not a rock world right now. Back then in the '90s, everything was rock, um, and but I loved Australian bands too. There's some of my favorite bands are Australian. So yeah, whatever the case may be, I'm not sure exactly what the kinship is there, but it felt comfortable out there for sure. 24 hours in the air on a plane, you know, it takes years off your life in terms of jet lag, but it was always worth it.
We have a deep cut question from a fan. This is from Paul Broadfoot. The question is, at Snow Job 1995, they opened with a banger that some fans think is a song called Warrior, and others call it Warning. What is the real title, and did they ever record it? Do you know what they're talking about?
I know what they're talking about. We had the audacity when we were invited to play Snow Job, which for your listeners who don't know, it was 1995, I think. We were promoting In the Trees, and we were in Banff, and then Much Music would come down with a crew, and they would film, and it would be simulcast live. And it looked like Woodstock out there in Banff. It was packed. And that moment, as a matter of fact, I think really energized popularity. People could see what we're doing live. But excuse me, I'm digressing. The We decided to play a new song to open the set, and it's kind of a ballsy move. And it was this song. We didn't have a name for it, and the way I remember it is we always have working titles for songs, and we have like a little placeholder, and sometimes the placeholder just takes shape and stays put. And we were and still fans of the movie The Warriors. This is how I remember it. So we called the song Warrior. There's just a placeholder. I think that's the way it went down. It's this little 2 minute sort of banger that we never recorded, but a lot of people have mentioned it because it was sort of this rock song that was very highly energetic. And but yeah, very uh, like I said, ballsy move to be playing nationally and to open your set with a song that nobody's ever heard. But I like that kind of stuff. It's we took chances.
In 1996, you guys released the album Brand New Day. There's three singles, Incarnate, Shut Up, and Zoom. Were you guys feeling just a ton of pressure from record labels after the platinum success of the last album?
I don't know if we were sort of just specifically feeling pressure. I just don't know that we had time to really put together uh, material that was conducive to play live. That's how I interpret it. Over the years, we've kind of been hard on that album, but the way I look at it now is that's just an album that is not meant to be played live. Those are songs that I think are more ones where you can throw it on at a dinner party or something, listen to some nice melodic Watchmen. Um, it's not that they're not good songs, because the truth is we don't play any of those. We play maybe a couple of them live now. Uh, and that is the ultimate litmus test. Is it still something you play in your set list? We've tried a lot of them and they've just sort of organically gone away. But to answer your question, I don't think we were specifically feeling pressure at the time. We probably could have used some direction from maybe an A&R team or something. Uh, there's we could point the finger here, there, wherever, but at the end of the day, we just didn't have the good songs, or not good songs. We didn't have, in some cases, songs that were as strong and songs that were really ones that will make sense live. So But no, I'd say in a word, no, this wasn't because of pressure on the trees. On the contrary, I think we felt overconfident that we could put a song like Beach Music on the album that's just piano and voice. I remember listening to Automatic for the People by REM, and we all love that album. It's an incredible album, and it's got a song called Night Swimming on it. And I remember thinking, let's have a night swimming on Brand New Day. I mean, but the most popular band in the world, REM, can pull that off, but not little old the Watchmen from Winnipeg. So yeah, it was a uh, maybe a misstep in certain ways, but yeah, I'm still proud of a lot of the stuff on there.
With you guys being road warriors, you ended up touring with a ton of great bands. So I'm sure you can share some stories with bands that you've been on the road with. We have one fan question first. This is from Sylvain Mercier. His question is, what was it like touring with Canadian rock royalty, the Tragically Hip?
We get that question a lot, and it was I will say it was always exciting, obviously, and I think the most exciting time was when we would be working with them in the States. We did a series of shows around Cincinnati and Cleveland and Washington, D.C., I think. I'm trying to remember, it was around trees. We played in Chicago with them. Um, this was Phantom Power for them, and it was Silent Radar for us. And not only were they generous and lovely people who had crew that treated us with respect, it was also inspiring watching them every night. And I have told this story before, but it's true and it's worth retelling. At the time, I was going through, I was in a new relationship, and I was more interested in going back to the hotel and speaking on the phone with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, than watching the headliner of shows when we were on multiple bills. So I would always say to myself, okay, fans are gonna kill me for this because it's hard to believe what I'm about to say. I would say, okay, I don't want to watch the Hip tonight at this 500 seat bar. I just want to go home and speak to my girlfriend on my landline. But I'd say, okay, I'll just stay for one song. They would kick into, at the time they were playing Grace 2 as their opener every night, and I would be swept in. I would be just like immediately transfixed by what was happening. It was this Dionysian level performance that wasn't just a band playing songs. It was they created something very unique. It was performance. It was really exciting, and I felt that. Um, and that would be night after night. I would say the same thing. I'll stick around for a song, and I'd sit there the whole night and watch them because I couldn't leave. And there's very few bands that I've seen that had that effect. And I'm not just this isn't hyperbole. They were fantastic at the time. And we were all huge fans. They were a big influence on us as far as their whole aesthetic was concerned, for sure. Big influence on everybody in the country and beyond.
The album Brand New Day receives a Juno nomination for Rock Album of the Year. Was that something special, seeing as the album wasn't the commercial success that maybe you hoped for, that at least you got kind of the critical acclaim with the Juno nomination?
I don't think it was quite like that. I do remember after I think it was after in one of the singles, we had a meeting with our agent and manager, and they were kind of informing us that the record was, I think in their words, it was done. The label has stopped promoting the record. We have to sort of think of a contingency plan here. Time to start writing some more material. And I remember being very deflated after that. But like I said earlier, I've come around on that album. Wasn't that commercially successful? So what? I mean, I think it's hovering around. I last heard about 50,000 copies is, or maybe it has gotten gold. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But honestly, no, it didn't really matter that we were at that point. I was probably pretty cynical, thinking they probably just needed to round out the category with some bands that released albums that year, if I'm being honest. So, just telling you the truth, my friend.
That's what we want. So we have a fan question. This is from Aaron Roeder. More deep cuts here. What about the unreleased songs Venus and Seven Times? Are there any demos or recordings? I'm willing to Venmo the cash right now for those two. Those are two of the best songs that were only played live for a short period of time. So that's from Aaron.
Well, if you want to
You
give
could
Aaron
make a
money,
little Venmo deposit right
he can
here.
certainly email me $100 a song, and I'll see what I could do. No, I don't know what Venus is. Not a clue.
Okay.
Uh,
Venus and Seven Times. All right.
Venus, I don't know what we would often workshop songs when we were playing live a lot. We would, because a lot of times when you're writing as a band, you think your latest material is your best, and you're excited to play it. And it's an important step to get to the point where you're playing a song. When you're playing a song and you're seeing what kind of reaction emerges or lack of reaction, it really informs things like arrangement, and it just kind of it pushes you to maybe rearrange and throw the song away. The song he's mentioning there seven times, I think I know the one he's talking about. We were playing that around the Silent Radar tour. There was a bunch of them in that around that time, and it just didn't make the cut. It went away, and that happens sometimes. It just wasn't inspiring. And if I'm playing a song and I'm bored halfway through, or other people are, then chances are other people listening are probably feeling the same thing. So, yeah, great that we've got fans that dig into the history like that, because I do the same thing with bands, kind of geeking out on some of these deep tracks, and it's special to them, and I love that. I totally get it. Because when I was young too, I was before the internet, I would be sort of a collector of rarities and that sort of thing. So there's lots of Watchmen material out there that's never been recorded.
You have fans that have a voracious appetite for more Watchmen music. That's what you want in your
Look,
fans, right?
I think there's six of them, Joel, last time I checked.
But man, they love the music.
It's quality, not quantity.
Yeah. So in 1998, you guys released the album Silent Radar. There's four singles: Stereo, Any Day Now, Say Something, and Brighter Hell. The album goes gold. Stereo and Any Day Now were both top five hits in Canada. Man, both songs are just undeniable hits. Like to me, they sound like what a hit should sound like. When you finished writing both songs, did you know you had something special on your hands? Or is it only once they take off at radio where you go, oh, yeah, okay, those are hits?
More the latter in that no, we were far from thinking that these were our hits. We genuinely did not go down that road in our mind. What I will say is, after Brand New Day, after we realized that, hey, we've got this pile of songs that we're not that interested in bringing into our live show, I remember thinking that we want to scale it back a little bit. We had done a tour with a band called Weeping Tile that is Sarah Harmer's band.
Nice.
And Sarah would always be backstage before and after shows with her acoustic guitar playing songs. And I have a memory of being very inspired by uh, songs that were just powerful on an acoustic guitar. And it's a bit foggy, but I do remember having a conversation or thinking more along the lines of, we need to come back to some songs here for Silent Radar, and we wrote what I feel is the best batch of songs. We always just went into an album with more songs than we needed. Maybe we recorded all of them. Maybe we only recorded about 10 or 11 or 12, whatever. There was rarely sort of anything thematically happening with what we were doing, or a sort of a story to tell. This is our breakup album. This is our drug addiction album. It wasn't like that. It was just, these were our best songs. And yeah, we went in with that attitude. I don't remember stereo being something that where there was this kind of light bulb that went off, but I do remember Any Day Now. I remember Danny. I was rooming with him at the time. We were staying at this hotel that we spent years at together in Toronto. We weren't living in Toronto at the time. Him and I were in Winnipeg. We'd come to Toronto to write, and he taped on his dictaphone Any Day Now, the crude Any Day Now that we'd worked on. And I remember thinking, this is good. This is great. This is a nice 4-minute pop song. I used to joke call it our Phil Collins song because my mom liked it. And I'm not sure if that was a good thing at the time, trying to be a dangerous grunge band. Your mommy likes the song. It wasn't really the ideal audience, but all jokes aside, it's a good song. Ben Montench is playing on it from Tom Petty. Our producer had a pretty thick Rolodex with contacts, and he said, I can get Tom Petty's uh, Hammond organ player to add something to this. And we're just, sure, take it out of the old budget. And Danny went down to LA and Ben Mon played on the song, and it's beautiful. The organ's right up there in the mix, and really, really proud of that album for sure.
So Stereo is the band's most popular song on Spotify, 7 million plays. Why do you think people love that song so much?
Well, first of all, it gets a lot of radio play still, so it's out there a lot. It's got, I think it really pops on the radio too. Uh, I mean, it's kind of a joke. The snare is the loudest thing in the mix, which I'm not sure how that happened. I wasn't there for the mix, but Adam
When they were
Casper,
turned around, you didn't just sneak up the
no,
snare
no,
fader?
I tried. They kicked me out. But Adam Casper, who mixed the album, had been recently working with um, Queens of the Stone Age and Soundgarden and Foo Fighters, and I was thrilled. I mean, he's like Mr. Drums, really loud guy, and I was proud of what I did on that record. So it's just a kind of in-your-face rock song that it's got an amazing vocal performance on it, a chorus that sticks out. I love the fact that those songs, that album in particular, we were lucky enough to get the songs professionally recorded at a time when record labels were sinking thousands of dollars into recordings. Now the barrier to entry to get into recorded music is a laptop with your garage band in your stinky basement. Then it was a record deal. Here's the money, record. You go through the A&R system. You scrutinize over mixes. Here's one with the kick drum louder. Here's one with the vocal down, up, etc. And that song, it's a radio song. So uh, does it have a lot of depth to it? I don't know. Does it have a lot of uh, does it give you the does it create a beat, or does it make you want to dance? No, it does not. But it's a cool song.
I can give you a 13-year-old's perspective of hearing the song for the first time because I was 13 when this song came out. And I
Okay,
remember
let's hear it.
I would wait by the radio, and when that song came on, I would lose my mind. I'd never heard anything like that song before. A song where it's basically just guitar and vocals for a portion of it, and the guitar seems to be kind of like fading in and fading out, and the song, it says stereo and about phasing and this stuff, and it feels like the guitar is phasing in and out, and it just seemed
Right.
like this one congruent thing. And Danny's vocals are unbelievable. I think he has one of the great rock voices. It's such a pleasant vocal. You could play me a million bands, and as soon as you play anything Danny sings, I can tell it's Danny. There's something distinct about his voice. And I remember it was my favorite song when it came out. And I went out and I bought this album. And to this day, when I think about the Watchmen, I think about stereo, I think about the album Silent Radar. The album is so polished, and I'm saying that in a good way. Like
Mhm.
it just sounds so great and so polished. And stereo and Any Day Now to me is like the ultimate 1-2 punch. Like those are undeniable. You hear those and you go, that's a hit. That is definitely a hit. And I look at that as that's the Watchmen. And The albums before it to me were more indie sounding, a band that were working their way up to Silent Radar. And, after
Hmm.
that with Slow Motion, it's like, oh, it's a band that's experimenting with electronic sounds. But the band itself to me is the Silent Radar sound. That's my 13-year-old self talking to this day. That's what sticks with me.
Well, look, I love that because I know that at that age, everybody has that band that kind of hits them like that, and that stays with you. You're thinking from not such a critical mind. What's the you're just it's hitting you in a way you don't even know what hit you. And I have those examples too. And yeah, I will say with all humility, I mean that album is really beautifully recorded. Uh, but we also went into it very, very prepared. What I will say is we spent a couple years really, really working on our song craft. I think we were really getting good at writing as sort of group compositions at the time on the heels of Brand New Day. And we did a special edition, a kind of a deluxe edition of Radar a few years ago, and it's got some unmixed versions of what ended up on the album, as well as some live stuff, some outtakes. But there's also this demo of Silent Radar that we did with a guy called Matt DiMatteo, who is to me an unsung hero of talent in this country. He's an incredible drummer, amazing producer. He's worked with Danko Jones, Big Wreck, first album Big Wreck. His drum sounds are incredible. But we have this other version of Silent Radar that Matt DiMatteo recorded. The arrangements are exactly the same as they are on the final version, which to me says that we were very prepared. Uh, because we were playing those songs to death. The arrangements were really sort of refined. We're kind of just like all there, all for one, one for all around that time. So anyway, thank you for saying that. That's very cool. I'm like I said, proud of that record for sure.
We have a fan question from Nikki. She says, Sammy is the best. What does the song Brighter Hell mean to the band so us fans know the true meaning?
It means nothing to me. No, it's Brighter Hell. Brighter Hell kind of exemplifies the kind of emotional, sort of introspective side of the band. We had that rock sound in stereo, and then the last song on the album was something that we tapped into lyrically: loss, regret, death. With He's Gone. The guys, Joey and Danny, were experimenting with some of that stuff. Danny was writing. He wrote that song lyrically. We composed it sort of as a group. And I remember talking about how early on we wanted to have sort of a very kind of a signature last song of an album. I always liked when bands had last songs that left you wanting more, with this kind of with this crescendo. Middle East does that on In the Trees as well. The last song, it starts with its like a little bongo and ends up with the four of us kind of noisy, making this loud crescendo. And it's thinking in terms of an album or a CD at the time. Brighter Hell had that aesthetic as well. And that's the kind of stuff I love. I was just talking to a friend of mine, just a bit of a tangent here. Rick Davies from Supertramp just passed away. I don't know if you're a fan. I am a fan. I'm not a huge fan, but I'm definitely a fan. I was talking to him. He's a friend of mine, Sean from Winnipeg, who is a massive fan. But he was saying, I'm, sad to hear about Rick Davies. And I said, Supertramp just took you places. They took you on this sort of journey. You don't see their videos. You don't see them even because they're a radio band, I suppose. But that was something that we certainly strive for, was a musical journey, if you will. Sounds really kind of pretentious now that I'm hearing myself, but we that's what we liked, as far as certain bands and certain records were concerned, certain songs. So just in a simple nutshell, Brighter Hell, I think we're trying to do something really special with that one, in that regard.
The groove on the song Rooster is so good. How do you achieve that groove? Like, do you just have to lay way back on the drums?
Yeah, I'm a groove player, Joel. Those are that my players,
The
Steve
Groove
Jordan.
Master, baby.
Well, that's you know, Watchmen are interesting in that I feel like Joey and I are almost the rhythm section in the Watchmen. We're really locked in terms of how we play, and the way he plays, the way I play. I'm very much playing to the best of my abilities, which is groove. Um, like I said earlier, repetition. Just it's something I sort of feel. It's not about flash. It's not about chops. And Ken is a rather sort of busy bass player, and that complements my less is more style. So we have a bass player that wants to be a lead guitarist, and then maybe a guitarist that wants to be Pete Townsend and more of a rhythm guy who writes words, and then I'm kind of just keeping time, and then a singer who I feel is certainly exceptional, who people turn their head when they hear him. Um, but anyway, yeah, Rooster. To be honest with you, Rooster, I'm going to just lay it on the line. I can't stand listening to that song
How
because,
dare you, sir?
well, because the tempo is all over the place. I didn't use a click track on Silent Radar, and there's like five tempos on that song, and it's not a good take of the song. I'm really demystifying something here, but it's cool because Ben Montange plays on it, but it's a little cringy, and I don't listen to it, and not because of that. I just don't go back and listen to my band. It's like staring in a mirror all day, but I remember it just being kind of all over the place. But
But the
it's yeah,
vibes
we
are
wanted to.
so good. The vibes.
Okay, all right. I trust you. You know more about this stuff than I do. I mean,
Well, I don't know about that, but anyways, I remember listening to it and it just like it had such atmosphere and such a great vibe. So I thought I
yeah,
would point that out.
I think we're going for something like that. I'm kind of skirting around the question here. It's yeah, we love those darker, groovier kind of moments of introspection. Some critics I remember reading in Australia that they would say that the album's kind of all over the map stylistically, but that's the band, that's the Watchmen. I mean, you've got stuff like Stereo, then you've got stuff like Brighter Hell. So that's who we are.
So you guys received your third Juno nomination in a row. That's three albums in a row. And we have a fan question here again from Paul Broadfoot. He had a bunch of questions, so I kind of pick and choose through them. So his question is, in 2011, you played and recorded a show at the Horseshoe where the band played Silent Radar front to back. What is your opinion on full album shows, and would you ever play another one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was very popular a few years back. I think we did do Silent Radar in sequence once, front to back. But with the Watchmen, Joel, it's about time. It's about the ability um, to carve out the time to rehearse and to write and make this our day job. Um, I've, as you mentioned earlier, I've been in real estate for a number of years. That's my work. That's my livelihood. That's my passion now is um, my day job. So the only thing that would ever really hold us back from doing those sorts of things is just the ability to get together in a room and do it. And we're particularly bad at that sort of thing because we all have other priorities. And it's tough. Every band has its wrinkles, and we've got lots of wrinkles. And it's we kind of scatter and go our separate ways when we're not working together. We don't socialize a lot. We have this business that we run together. I mean, I'm horrible to be in a band with. I will say that right off the I would be horrible. I wouldn't want to be a band with myself. I argue about everything. If I want to get my way, I'll sulk about it. I feel like I'm always right about stuff, and yeah. I mean, I can play, I can groove, but yeah, I'd be horrible to be in a band with.
At least you're
But that's an
self-aware.
aside.
You do have that quality. You're
Yeah.
self-aware.
Oh, terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know how those guys put up with. They barely put up with me. But yeah. that would require more rehearsal than we would be able to commit to, but not out of the question because as it happens in the last year or so, we've decided that we want to rehearse more and get better, and we're always tinkering with this material. We've got songs that we've been playing for 25 years, but we're still making little changes to the ending and this middle section and doing that. And that to me is the sign of a good song, is one that has sort of a bit of an evolution to it and is not just, okay, it's recorded and this is the arrangement and we're done. We still stretch and try to work with the material and then incorporate new material if we can as well. We've been kind of touching on that a bit, which is a whole different conversation, but
So I'll just quickly touch on slow motion and then we'll move into other things like real estate. So slow motion you guys released in 2001. There's three singles, Absolutely Anytime, Holiday, and Slow Motion. The album goes gold. You left before this album. At what point did you know that it was time to leave the band?
it was an interesting time for the band. Uh, and like I said earlier, every band has its challenges, and we have had and have our challenges in terms of maybe some interpersonal relationships and musical differences. If I could bring out the biggest cliche around, at that point, we were, I think, about 11 or 12 years in, maybe about 11 years in. And if I could sort of set the tone, we had a label that was dragging their feet as far as what we were doing. That was EMI. It had been 3 years since the Silent Radar came out, roughly 3 years, and they weren't happy with what we were coming up with in terms of the demos we were sending them. And if a label isn't happy, they don't release the advance, and they don't give you a budget to record. So that was creating a lot of frustration. You start pointing fingers, blaming each other for certain shortcomings, this and that. And that coincided with the band getting into some home demos and personal recording. And I remember the label really encouraging that, which is fine. I've got nothing against experimentation. My favorite bands will have their records where it's just a complete left field, and you are a creative band. You want to do things, you want to take chances. I don't think that album has the songs. In all honesty, it's an album with songs that some of them are good, but I have to be honest. I've never even listened to that record. I've heard bits and pieces of it over the years. But it was dressed up in this sort of electronica that I think the label was really pushing. Certainly, the band had an interest in it. Um, but I remember sitting in a recording studio. We were recording a song called I Like It, and I wasn't even on the recording. We were working with a gentleman who had created this drum loop, and I was getting pressure from the label and the guys to kind of go with the flow, and this is what we want to get into now. And I was just, this is not, I'm not on this song, and this is not, this doesn't sound like the Watchmen. I'm not inspired, and that coincided with me getting interested in some other things professionally. That was the sort of beginning of my career in sales. So yeah, it was all kind of a mutual thing. We have different memories of kind of what went down when I sort of left the band, so to speak. I do remember when that happened. We had a conference call a few weeks later where we tried to hash it out, and I had had enough at that point. To me, that album is, for your listeners who enjoy good metaphors, that is our cut the crap. I don't know if you know the album by The Clash called Cut the Crap. Well, Google Cut the Crap, and you'll see that in the catalog of albums by The Clash, Cut the Crap is uh, in a certain category. Let me just say that, and that's all I'll say. Slow Motion is the Watchmen's Cut the Crap.
I'm familiar with their more popular albums, but I'll have to check out that reference. We have a fan question from Chris Anderson. Any chance the Watchmen albums will be put out on vinyl?
Slim chance, my friend.
So
We've
you're saying there's
tried.
a chance, a very
They're
slim chance.
yeah, it's very expensive pressing vinyl. And I know that with I've looked into it before because I'm kind of the band's archivist. I'm sort of responsible for those reissues that have been on digital platforms, digging up our through our vaults and such. Silent Radar is it's like 60 minutes long. It would have to be a double vinyl, double album, and it would be a 50-60 dollar purchase in a store, and it would cost a lot to make it. So we just don't have a label that is interested in doing that in very pragmatic terms. That's really what it comes down to. I'd love to have our albums on vinyl. I'd love to listen to them on vinyl, but I just don't see it. We pressed some vinyl a few years ago on a live album we did called Live in Stereo, and I think maybe I can't remember how many we pressed. I think it's sold out now, but yeah, I totally get how people want vinyl now. I'm right in there, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
So in 2014, Vanessa Azzoli released the book Uncovered the Story of the Watchmen. And I have some kind words sent in from Vanessa. She says, writing the book changed the course of my career and my life. And Sammy was my rock through it all. I'm forever thankful for all his help in making it such a success. So that's from Vanessa.
So nice. Lovely. Yeah, I remember her. Can't remember how that went down exactly. But Vanessa and I had some coffees and talked things through, and I was excited about it because I've read every music biography that ever was ever written. And I remember drawing her attention to the 33 and a third series of books. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's this wonderful little publisher that puts out the book. It's a little mini book that covers just one album. There's a Highway to Hell. There's a Fear of Music. There's a Fish albums, REM albums, whatever. And the book is one album. And I just was referencing that. And we had some coffees, and she wrote the book, and it was a fun thing to work on for a little while. So yeah, very cool.
So we have a few fan questions. Charles Neil Smedella. The question is, whatever happened to all the posters hanging on the walls inside the McLaren furnace room?
Oh, I know what he's talking. On the cover of McLaren, we've got all these great posters because Danny and I both worked in record stores at the time. He was at A&A and I was at Music City, I think, or and of course they've got these posters. So we had if you look closely on that album cover, you could see all these posters. I don't know. I'm not sure. The garbage.
We have two questions that are basically asking the same thing. So from Christina Liam Dixon, she asks, they keep dropping hints of new music. And with Joey Serlin owning a studio, what is the actual chance of some new stuff? And then the other question from Darcy Timko, I'm interested in if they have any new music in the pipes. It's been a long time. So same question,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's a fair question, and I can appreciate that. I mean, I've joked before that we're kind of scraping the barrels here as far as the patience of our fans not coming out with new stuff. As it happens, this year in particular, we've really tried to buckle down a little bit and collect some ideas that some of us have. Few members have come to the table with fully completed songs. We had in this, I guess, past month or so, we've actually had some writing sessions as well, which is something new for us in an effort to try to come up with some new material. I think right now there's about 4 or 5 ideas that are pretty strong that are kicking around, but really we don't know. We kind of don't know what to do with it. If I'm being honest, there's no infrastructure of a record label anymore. People put music up on the internet and it's gone. It's here today, gone later today. So that's a bit of a challenge. The journey needs to be the destination, I think. And if we're getting something out of working together and creating that in itself, should be enough. But certainly we'd love people to hear this stuff. And I think we're still trying to figure out how that would work exactly. So we could always just throw something up on Spotify or whatever, but we're still kind of hashing some of that out right now. But yeah, there's definitely some good ideas that are kicking around right now. And what's funny is she mentioned Joey's studio. Joey is a part owner of a company called Vapor Music, which does film and television commercials, movies, etc. He's a successful guy. We've caught ourselves on a few occasions. We're in this room hammering out songs, and we're recording them on our iPhones to remember the ideas. And one of us said recently, we're surrounded by millions of dollars of recording gear, and we're recording this on an iPhone. I mean, it's just some things never change. Um, anyway, I thought that was kind of funny, but I really hope that within the next 6 to 12 months or so, we have something that we could at very least put on a website or get out there, because there are some really good songs or ideas right now that should and could see the light of day. We just have to sort of figure out some details.
You guys have three upcoming shows, September 25th in Niagara, Ontario, October 11th, Kitchener, Ontario, November 13th, Winnipeg, Manitoba. For our fans that are listening that are in those three markets, if they went and purchased a ticket right now to see you guys in concert, what can they expect from the Watchmen?
It would be me doing about 10 minutes of stand-up comedy. I'm working on my stand-up comedy right now, Joel, and I'm
Amazing.
workshopping some material. So, no, it's look, we are, if nothing else, we're very, very consistent live, but we don't aim to just be consistent. We try to sort of get to a place of transcendence. When we work our live show at this point, we can definitely deliver. Uh, and then once in a while, what we feel, we'll kind of kill it, and everything will be sort of aligned. The improvisational sections are taking shape. The flow between songs is working. The set list is working. There's energy from the crowd. That's the ultimate goal. I would say this year in particular, and it's not always the case, we've been playing some really good shows that we've been happy with. We're playing well. We're clear-headed. And so I think that that's likely what's going to happen, those three shows, or at least that's what we're going to strive for. And then we're going to also, we always try to sort of mix it up a little bit in terms of set list, maybe adding a few things here and there. Hopefully, maybe we'll put a new song in there too as well. We're talking about that.
I saw you guys did an Aussie tribute at one of the shows not too long ago.
Look, there are a few musicians that make such a difference as Ozzy. I mean, Joey and I were sort of headbangers, if you will, in the early 80s. And Ozzy was a true original. And we loved his music. I loved his whole persona. And we decided right before a show we played last summer with Big Rec at a festival out in Alberta, and we brought in a quiet moment, Danny broke into Mama, I'm Coming Home. Uh, and you could feel the energy just rising from the audience, because Ozzy had just passed away a few days before. And I saw the clip on YouTube. It sounds great, if I do say so myself. And yeah, he added a lot, and we've always paid tribute to bands and artists and people that we love over the years. Well, it'll be very sort of time sensitive depending on what happens. I remember we did the song "Political" by Spirit of the West a few years ago, because John Mann had passed away around that time, and we're music lovers and music fans, so we'll pay homage when we have the opportunity to do so. So we had to do something for Ozzy.
Melissa Moss wants to know, will they ever play Atlantic Canada again?
Well, we've played Newfoundland over the years. Is that considered Atlantic Canada, or are they their own island?
I am no geography expert, but that's Melissa's question. I don't know if she wants a specific area, but
Well, as it happens, Joel, excuse me,
that's all
I
good.
am a geography expert.
Oh, there
I
you go.
am. I'm kidding, of course. We would love to, again, back to the whole pragmatic thing. It's got to make sense in terms of some numbers, in terms of everybody's schedule, and we would never turn down a good opportunity out there. I'd love to play out there, but it would have to make sense for all of us, for sure.
So we're getting near the end of the fan questions. This is from Toby Lane Daniels. Toby asks, well, starts by saying, first off, Sammy is as nice as he is talented. Please ask him what keeps him motivated to play after all these years. The music? The fans?
The money? No.
The money?
You know what? I know Toby. She's an old friend, an old dear friend. We have some incredible fans. This is a good segue into her question here is um, because we built things brick by brick way back when, we have this incredible community of fans and people who love the band. I have said this before, the Watchmen do not have casual fans. I'm proud to say that when people are into the band, they love the band and they see us multiple times. I mean, there's not hundreds of thousands of them, but the people who are interested are devoted. And to answer Toby's question, I think it's sorry, I'm just getting an email. I'm going to shut that down. I kind of feel like that's probably why is we have that really devoted fan base who are still coming out to see us play. Uh, like I said earlier, we all have day jobs and priorities outside the band, but when we can make it work um, and it makes sense on all levels, then we'll get out there and do it. So it's a very addictive thing. It's not always a satisfying thing. It can be frustrating at times when you're traveling and you're out there and maybe you're not playing as good as you could and whatnot. But what could be very addictive is when you have those transcendent moments where something very exciting happens on stage that you least expect. It's this intangible feeling where for me, I have sort of this afterglow 2 or 3 days after a really, really good show. Then it goes away. But that's for me, speaking for myself, that keeps me going for sure. And there's been a few of those this year, which I'm really happy to report.
So you've had a ton of success as a real estate agent over the last couple decades. And we have a comment and a question sent in from another musician that's made the transition over from playing bass for I Mother Earth and the Salads to becoming a real estate agent. This is from Chuck Daly. And Chuck says, Sammy was a big help when I got into real estate. Gave me some great advice coming from music. Would love to hear from him why he thinks the transition works so well as a musician. He's awesome at both gigs. There's lots of us out there. Love me some Sammy. So that's from Chuck.
Chuck, you're beautiful. Wow, nice guy, great band. I mean, look, I wasn't accepted into any med schools. No, I I hit 30 and left the Watchmen and needed to kind of reinvent myself. And that started with some sort of entry-level sales positions, one being notably Now Magazine, you might be familiar with, living in Toronto, which was this sort of counterculture uh, weekly paper that talked about weird books and weird film, and it had lists of different bands that are playing in town and whatnot. And I sold ads into this thing, and I drove all over the city. Speaking to different business owners and restaurant owners and proprietors and such to buy ads into this thing that was at the time pre-internet 250 pages, and it really whet my appetite as far as this other skill I had, and that was working with people and creating rapport with people and selling something that was of value to them, listening to what their needs are, understanding what their needs are, and selling them something. So I don't know how much alignment that has with being in the band. So anyway, short story is long, short story long. That cut to about 10 years later, I got my real estate license, and for a number of years now, I've been selling and buying and selling real estate in Toronto, because selling is selling, and if I'm going to sell, may as well sell something big and exciting like a house. And I felt I had an affinity for that line of work. Maybe to Chuck's point, the entrepreneurial aspect of what I'm doing and what we did, and the kind of all or nothing mentality that you need to have. We are all for one, one for all, like I said when we were in the band. And my work now is I don't have a backup plan. I am a realtor, and I love the work. I love working with people and such. So yeah, I guess there's a few things when I tell people who I work with that I used to be a professional musician. I always get, how the hell did you end up in real estate? To me, there is a through line that makes sense, but I could see why that might be a little wonky to the anybody who cares on the surface or the external surface.
When your
Chuck's a good realtor too. Let me say that. Sorry to Joel. Chuck
No,
is
go
a hell of
ahead.
a realtor too, and he's got a good band too. He's a handsome guy as well.
There you go, laying it on thick. Chuck will love that.
Yeah.
When your real estate clients find out that you are the drummer for a platinum selling band, do any of them request drum lessons?
So funny you mentioned that. Somebody, no joke, last week I was with her and she said her 12-year-old son wants drum lessons. So it's very funny you mentioned that. It's rare. I do get people who are kind of excited. Uh, Certainly if they're familiar with the band, and a lot of times because people Google who they're working with, if I'm working with a prospect or somebody who I'm spending some time with, inevitably they will Google me because they want to see what they're dealing with as far as my real estate background. I have a sort of reams of reviews and lots of real estate content out there, but they'll eventually find a picture of me with a fro that big, trying to look cool in a band promo shot. So it'll certainly create some curiosity. But I, all jokes aside, I'm incredibly proud of that time. It's allowing me now and us the ability to still play a handful of shows every year to some fantastic fans. It's still something that's important to me. When you're a music fan to the level that we are, that doesn't go away. It's like a snowball. It gets exacerbated year over year. I'm still as passionate as I ever was about bands and music and playing. It just gets more complicated with families and harder and such. But um, yeah, not a lot of drum lessons, but certainly some curious uh, clients wondering about what the deal is with what I did when I was in my 20s.
We made it to the final fan question. This is from Cam Brio. Cam's question is, when is your podcast with Cam Gordon coming back? And are you still drumming up results? See what he did there? Drumming up results. Damn, Cam, good job.
Clever. It is not coming back anytime soon because Joel, the world does not need any more podcasts.
You might not be wrong about that.
Yours is the best. You got a good one, but I'm assuming this is Cam Gordon writing this, my old friend Cam Gordon. I did a podcast with Cam a few years ago called the Completely Ignored Podcast, and we
That's
would
funny.
interview uh, fans of and friends and ask them what their kind of desert island album was and talk about that for a while. Just geek out stuff, and usually we'd end up talking more about the band than the album. But yeah, not going to be podcasting anytime soon. But lots of big love to Cam Gordon.
So we've made it to the final few questions here. When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
Okay, I mean, look, just the overarching fact that we put Winnipeg or had a hand in putting Winnipeg on the map. And when anybody references notable, successful bands that come out of Winnipeg, they mention the Watchmen. I'm really proud of that. Uh, there's thousands and thousands of bands. There were even more bands in the 90s. We managed to carve out a little bit of a body of work. We are continuing to work to this day. We can sit in a room together and communicate on a level that allows us to do so. Um, and that's a really hard thing to do, keep a band together. Really, really hard thing to do. And we're wise enough to be able to do it for the most part. So yeah, really proud of that. I do, and I enjoy talking about the band with anybody who cares to listen. If because anybody who was around in the '90s knew of that watershed moment when there was all those bands that we were talking about, and it was a very, very exciting time. And I don't think it's going to come back anytime soon. I mean, when's the last time you listened to an album start to finish? Maybe, mind you, I'm talking to the
I'm
wrong
the
guy.
rare guy that does, but yeah.
Yeah. My kids now, when I'm driving around, we listen to songs. It's all just songs, which I'm kind of on board with that too. I'm a jogger. I jog and I listen to shuffled playlists. So the album is sadly kind of become antiquated for the most part. There's vinyl, but that's a different story. So super, super proud of that time that we spent together. It was a dream realized. Not to sound too corny, but it's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I did it, we did it, but it ran its course. And I hit a certain age where I was married, I had kids, different responsibilities, and I'm equally as proud of the life that I built post Watchmen with a very successful real estate career. Um, because that too is a grind and hard work. And there's thousands and thousands of realtors in Toronto, and a small percentage of them are able to do it professionally and successfully. And I'm in that category, thankfully. Very grateful for that and the support I've had through that. So I'd like to thank God as well. No, just kidding. Yeah, that's sorry. What's it been like 6 hours we've been talking here, Joel? I'm getting
Yeah,
a
we've
little
made it
tired.
through the 2 hours. You mentioned that it's people don't even listen to albums anymore. It's just songs. It's almost not even songs. People listen to a verse and a chorus and then they skip to the next song. So we're almost not even at the song point anymore. We're at the hook and switch.
I have a turntable sitting right beside me here, and I still buy albums. I will buy albums and then just not listen to them. I'll buy them because, oh, I've got to have this old Who album or something. It's just about convenience now and proximity. Uh, but yeah, I know that there's lots of fans out there who listen to records, listen to vinyl, but you're right, the attention span of the average listener, if they can get through a song, my kids are like that too. I will be driving around and the playlist will sometimes be a verse and a chorus, then it's on to the next thing. But there's great stuff out there right now. My kids introduced me to some amazing new artists and new music. So um, it is what it is as far as the industry is concerned.
If you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice, if you took everything you've learned since 10 years old, the experiences and mentorship and lessons and the highs and lows, the wins, the failures, if you could whisper words to cute little Sammy sitting there, 10 years old, to guide him through this human experience, what do you share with him?
Hmm. Don't eat yellow snow. No, I would
Frank
say,
Zappa would be proud.
yeah, Frank Zappa reference. You know what? In all seriousness, I was very guilty of sort of wishing the days away on tour, wanting to get home, um, anxious about the level of success or lack of success we were having, just not in the moment, not enjoying it as much as I should have when I think uh, about that time. It was a very, very uh, heavy time as far as the band being kind of life and death for us. So we were always felt like we were under a certain amount of pressure. But yeah, we there was moments when I think as a group we forgot to just kind of have a good time because we were so concerned about what was next, the next frontier, the next mountain. So it wasn't until we kind of reformed that we could, I think, take a deep breath, kind of have a good time and enjoy it a little bit. So I really, really try to do that as much as I can. It's not always the case. It's been 15, 16 years since we've sort of ostensibly reformed. Uh, but yeah, when it's good, it's good. And it's really good. So that's I would remind my 10-year-old self to if I'm whispering right in my ear, I would say, clean your ears, first off. Make sure you, because, and then I would say, have a good time.
Final question. Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have supported you all the way from the beginning?
Look me up online, and if you're buying and selling a house, no, sorry, Joel. Look, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that people still come out to the shows and that we still have a very devoted and dedicated fan base. The music sort of speaks for itself. I know about what it means to go see concerts and bands that mean something to me. I've got my favorites, my favorite artists, my favorite albums, my favorite concerts, whatever. Um, keep coming to the shows and let's just enjoy. That's the last thing I'll say.
As we
Unless you have
wrap
any.
up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a drummer and now as a real estate agent. I want to commend you for having the courage to dream big, to set goals, to actually pursue that dream through to fruition. You've achieved so much more than most musicians will ever achieve. I want to thank you for putting out great music that's become the soundtrack to the lives of millions of people around the world. It's been the soundtrack to my life for the last 27 years. Now I'm aging myself. I want to thank you for providing kind words to Mitch Dorge from the Crash Test Dummies. You helped make that interview special. We got him right in the feels. And last but not least, I want to thank you for sitting down with me for the last 2 hours, answering all my ridiculous Watchmen questions. I really appreciate it. So, Sammy, thank you so much.
My pleasure, and a big thanks to you too for doing this. Your podcast is great. Keep going. I'm a fan of yours too, I look forward to the next time we can do this.
Thank you for the kind words. You're very welcome. So, to the Sammy Kohn fans, to the Watchmen fans, to the podcast fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.